Hey y'all, what's up? Riddick here with an introductory to tanking in ESO. So if you're brand new to ESO or even a current player that's been playing a little while and you're thinking about making a tank, I hope you find this video and avoid some of the mistakes I made and that it'll help you out. I'll sum up everything I wish I'd known on day one of making a tank with a short video. Took a ton of time to research, so if you get the chance, please hit the like and subscribe and drop a comment below. Now, when I think of a tank, I think of a big chunky guy with a nice health pool that just loves getting punched in the face. That's the tank's job. This whole fake tank, PvP hopping, super dodge rolling, or kiting around the room does nothing. Let's be honest. That is a PvP thing developed to move out of the way. It does not work with the boss. A lot of their attacks have cleave. So what's really going to happen is, one, you're going to pull them out of your DPS as dots and ground effects. So you're going to prolong the fight because now they can't get no damage on them because they're always constantly chasing you around the room. Two, you're going to mess up, get your group killed because you're going to jump the wrong way. They're going to get cleaved, and there goes your DPS and your healer. So taunt it, turn it around, take the hit. Block when you need to block. Heavy attack to keep your resources up. Occasionally dodge rolling's fine. But this whole PvP bouncing around the room, it's a waste of time. You do nothing but aggravate everybody. If you want to play a tank, I'd highly recommend playing it from day one and level one. That way you get your skills as you go, you level with them, and you get to learn them, and you get to learn how they work together. It all ties together, and it's a big part of the in-game group play, and it's a lot of fun. So, big part of tanking is knowing when to block, when to interrupt. There's actually cues in the game for this. I'll go through them a little bit later and show them to you. Try and give you some tips that'll help you out. So let's talk about our basics. Aggro. If you're new to ESO, it does not have a threat table like World of Warcraft or say Terra Online. It has taunts and that's it. Alright? They're just like toddlers. As long as you're playing with them, you have their attention, they're going to play with you. When you're taunting them, they're going to play with you. When you go to ignore them and turn your head and look away, they're going to run off and find something else to play with. It's pretty much completely random too. Done some pretty big testing with DPS and healers, and they may favor the healer a little bit, but you never know. It's really random. Okay, so we're going through the taunts. Your first taunt you're going to get comes from your sword and board skill line. So if you're going from day one, pick up your sword and board and play with it. Starts off as puncture, morph it to pierce armor. That way you get the major and minor breach every time you do the pokey on something, and you get the DPS increase. There's several other things in here that's good. All your passives, you'll want all of them eventually. The pokey is the most important one though. Probably the most important taunt in the entire game, to be honest. Coming down to the Undaunted, as soon as you can, you'll want to visit an inn, get the Undaunted skill line, Inner Rage. Alright. I don't use this one a whole lot for my own reasons. I have other things I do to taunt, but this is your range taunt, 28 meters. It's very important. You'll want to get it, get all your passives. The Undaunted skill line is an important skill line for any class. You have Bone Shield. I've morphed mine to Bone Surge. You put it out, you get a nice shield based on your health pool. And if somebody takes a synergy off of it, 5 other allies. Sanguine Altar costs a little bit of health. They can take a synergy off of it and heal for 40% of their max health. Huge in certain instances in the game. Okay, there's some sets that add some extra stuff. You come up here to your destructive staff and look at your destructive clinch. It started out as destructive touch, morphed to destructive clinch with an ice staff. Frost clinch costs less, deals less damage, applies major maim, immobilizes, and taunts the enemy. Good little range taunt there. It's only 15 meters, but it is very nice, very handy. I tend to use it over my inner fire. Wall of Elements, I've morphed mine to Elemental Blockade with the Frost Staff. Chills the enemies, does a little bitty dot, but it also gives you and 3 other people an ice shield. Very important if you decide to run with the ice staff on the back bar. You'll want all your passives too. In that, it will change your ice staff block to a Magicka focused block. That is huge, guys and girls. Very huge. Because with the Magicka block, you now have a stamina block and a Magicka block. And as long as you're maintaining your resources, no reason whatsoever to not be able to block. Most of your deaths come from the tank not managing his sustain and not being able to block and shield when he needs to. If you go into the Tormentor set, it has a real niche in it. I personally like it, especially in dungeons, vet dungeons. It's you can take this one, starts out as critical charge in the 2-handed skill line, morph it to stampede, and then it gives you a 22 meter range, and a 5 meter radius, puts a dot on the ground, and it becomes an AoE taunt. So just keep that in mind. One of the very few AoE taunts in the game. In fact, the only ones I know of are set specific like that. So with that being said, let's talk about dynamic scaling as you level. Allows a level 10 to go play with a level 40. No problem whatsoever, but also with that, you have to change your gear every 5 to 10 levels. You'll start feeling like you're weak. You'll start feeling like you're lagging behind. That's because you are. Until CP 160, you'll be replacing your gear. CP 160 is the cap, so when you get your CP 160, that's when you'll want to start worrying about your purples and your golds and so on and so forth. Otherwise, you're outgrowing your gear as fast as you can get it. I'm not saying don't go farm sets. I'm just saying be aware you can beat your head against the wall and make yourself miserable farming the same things over and over and over again. So let's go into some of the stats here and some of the important stats you need to know. One of them being your resistances. If you read the tooltip, it says your resistances cap at 50% or 33,000. Very, very important. All right. You'll want to get the max resistances, although don't sweat it. They'll come as you level. It just happens. There's some monster sets that give you a lot of resistances. There's boons that give you a lot of resistances. Buffs throughout the fight that gives you a lot of resistances. I actually resist out at about 55% by the time I get the buffs from my healers and some of the sets I have. So we'll talk about damage mitigation for a minute and how that plays in. So if I take a 100k hit and I'm capped at 50%, that means it's only a 50k hit, right? So if you look here and you go in, I have Minor Aegis. It's one of my set bonuses from a trial set. So that's not 55%. That's 5% of the remaining 50,000 left over, or 2,500, which now makes it a 47.5k hit, right? Now if you throw another 5 points on there through champion points, that's not another 2,500. That's another 2,375. That's what, when you hear the term multiplicative, they mean. Each one is based off the other. It's a multiplicative equation. So as one's done, then the other takes effect. So you get a diminishing return effect. So with that being said, don't get so caught up into that. There's a lot of things in this game that'll give you a nice boost. So you'll want some of all of it. Don't get caught up on trying to get your resistances up or your damage mitigation and forget about your block or your block mitigation or your block cost. Those all matter. It's a balancing act. Another big thing in the game is the boon. You can get these pretty early in the game, almost I think right off the bat. So hop a ride to the guild hall, and there's several good ones for tanks. There's one for health, there's one for stamina, there's one for resistances. I run the resistance one early on. I currently run the ad for not. As you can see, that's Magical Recovery, because a lot of my shields and stuff are based on Magica, so it's really, really nice to be able to keep my shields rolling and shield the group and help the healers out with some of the incoming damage. Another big one is block mitigation. So we'll talk about block mitigation for a minute. That goes at the end of your resistance calculation. So just say, for example, I take a 100K hit. I've got 50% resistances. That's 50%. Let's say my block mitigation is at 50%, just for the sake of easy numbers. That's another 50% of the 50,000. That brings me now down to a 25K hit. So, very big. It's important to block. Block cost is a big thing too. So don't get caught up in some bets and stuff. It's your game. Play it your way. There's a lot of very opinionated people in this game that want to tell you how to play it. Be wary of those. There's a reason they're opinionated about the game, and they're telling you how to play your character, and they're not playing it. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go into a little demonstration here before I get started. Camera adjustment is big in this game. Hold the down arrow on the D-pad. Forward zooms in, back zooms out. That's an important thing in a lot of fights. So normally I'd buff up before I pull, but since I accidentally pulled, go in, gather them up, CC them. Now I walk around doing the pokey, 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 pokey. Now you see how that ad over there went? Watch this. Get it back. That's an example of how aggro works. Now let's zoom in where you see a little better. Positioning. Pin them up. See those white lines? That is a heavy attack. You really want to block those. Those red lines is a channeled spell. That's a chance to interrupt. There's some more. Very important skill to learn. Hone, pick up is the interrupting. In game, it becomes very important. Come back here and play with me. Alright, now, see how I can't really see behind the ads? You can pull your camera up, and that will help tremendously with being able to spot your group and see what's going on, see if there's any other ads coming in. Oop, interrupt. That's huge. Practice that as you level. You'll be surprised how many tanks get the in-game content, or they start trying to run dungeons, trials, and they have no idea how to interrupt. Practice it. Really simple. Hold your block, bash, which is your attack. Hold block, hit your attack, that'll bash them. There's power bash in the sword and board line that works well too, but it is not a must. So, with that being said, pull your ads in, turn them away from your group, pin them up, pokey them all unless you want to run a niche set like Tormentor, and enjoy playing the game. As always, if you liked it and it helped you out, please hit the like and subscribe button. And that way you can follow and leave a comment for what other content you'd like to see.